Hello and welcome to episode 154 of Stand Up. Joining me today, former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirschner and bioethicist from NYU, Dr. Arthur Caplan. I'm Pete Dominic. It's time to stand up with me right now. Hello, my friends, and thank you very much for checking out the podcast today. Tell your friends and let them know that every day we're doing it. We're doing this podcast. You are supporting me. I could not do it without you, but we definitely need more subscriptions to be able to keep doing this and to sustain the podcast, especially now that I'm investing in a brand new studio, which I'm very excited about. As a matter of fact, Nick came over on Tuesday night and hung out for a little bit. We got the door in. He brought his lovely wife, Mary Beth, over. We had a Coors Light. It was fantastic. I'm very excited about the progress that we're continuing to make. Can't wait till it's done and to be in there and get out of the makeshift space that I've been in. Really looking forward to ramping it up. It is day 1287 of our long national nightmare. 97 days until Election Day. Hearing lots of smart people say the name Kamala Harris to be Joe Biden's running mate. Who knows? Time will tell. Lots to talk about with developments in COVID-19, and it's hard to wrap your head around right now. It really is. Like I said yesterday, and apparently this resonated with a lot of people, because several of you mentioned it, that last week, really, it got to people. It was the numbers were spiking. I think it was the fact that we thought we would be better off by this point, but we're not, and people just trying to reset. But Florida continues to get crushed, hitting a new record, setting a new record with 186 virus deaths in one day and pushing the toll of coronavirus to 6,000 in one day. Whew. Second largest teachers union in the U.S. said it would support strikes by its 1.7 million members to ensure that schools reopen safely. That's my friends at the American Federation of Teachers, led by the fearless Randy Weingartner. I got to get her back on the show. She's so great. The union, AFT, said that strikes should be the last resort. They obviously really don't want to do that. Are your kids going back to school? What's it look like in your state? My daughters are headed into 7th and 10th grade, and apparently they're going to go to school like a couple days a week based on the alphabet, and then be homeschooled or remote the other 3 days a week. The decision's not final, and the community is deciding on it now. But that's what it look like here in Rockland County, New York, Clarkstown School District, where my daughters are at. So really challenging. Next, I think it's fair to say the next year. It's going to continue to be challenging. So I'm going to continue to be here and do the podcast every day and learn from experts every day, talk about these really important ideas and issues and try to find ways to cope and make it through. 21 states are now in the red zone, from Alabama to Florida to Wisconsin, where they were placed there because they had more than 100 new cases per 100,000 people in the past week. And President Trump has said even though 21 states are in the red zone, that states should still have to reopen, as a federal report urged states to impose more restrictions. So it's just it's crazy that he is the president of the United States. It's crazy that he is insisting that states reopen, and it's crazy that yesterday he shared a tweet that had a video of a whole bunch of absolutely insane doctors. Yes, there are plenty, not most, but plenty of them, where one of the women in one of the doctors in this video that he retweeted said that masks don't work. There's a cure for COVID-19. And she also has made videos in the past saying that doctors make medicine using DNA from aliens. Really? Yeah. You can't make this shit up. You can't. It's crazy scary that he would share a video of such dangerous doctors, that they're trying to make medicine using DNA from aliens, and that they're trying to create a vaccine to make you immune from becoming religious. Where does this come from? It's the stuff of terrible movies. It's absolutely terrifying. And Don Jr. got apparently suspended from Twitter for sharing some crazy shit. So that's our president and his insanely stupid, awful son and entire family. That, by the way, he doesn't even care about. Anyway, that's just a little bit of news. And I know that a lot of you are having a hard time. You have reached out to me, and I'm reaching out to you. I'm struggling myself at times throughout the day. It's not easy, but we're going to keep working on this together and depending on each other and building this community and other communities that you can be a member of where you can find support, because we need it. We need it. You're not alone. I'm right here with you. And it's so great to have you right here with me. Maybe I'll see you on August 8th at Royalsford, Pennsylvania, where I'm going to be doing stand-up comedy. That's the plan, at least. Soul Joel's Comedy Club, socially distanced, outside, people wearing masks. We're going to give it a shot, folks. So if you're around that area, come on out. I would love to hang out with you and have a very socially distanced drink. But right now, I want to bring you my first guest. It is former federal prosecutor for over 30 years, Glenn Kirschner. He's got an awesome new YouTube channel where he's posting videos every day. He's on Twitter at Glenn Kirschner2, and he's a special guy who I like a lot. He might just be working in the Department of Justice if Joe Biden wins, I hope, if Joe Biden's listening. Here now, my latest conversation with the great Glenn Kirschner. Here he is now, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for the Kirschner Report. Glenn Kirschner. Hey, pal.
Pete, how you doing?
I'm doing very good. I'm very excited to have you joining me because really everybody can just go watch your YouTube video, which is up right now, which everybody should do. And they should subscribe to your hit channel. You're a media star now, an independent media star now to cover everything we're covering. But I appreciate you joining me and taking my questions as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. It was a full day, watching several hours of Bill Barr, lie, dissemble, deceive, grapple. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Okay, so your fans, your supporters want to know how and where you watch it. They also want to know, I'm being specific, where you sit and how did you eat? Did you drink? Did you take any drugs to get through it? Did you punch anything? How did you handle it? Where did you watch it? We want you to take us behind the scenes of you watching the testimony today, because you're often there in the hearing room back before COVID.
Yeah, so I was on and off a couple of times. I was on with Stephanie Rule this morning, obviously remotely. We do everything remote. I was on NBC News Now, which is NBC News streaming service in the afternoon. But other than that, I was sitting in my living room. I was watching it. I was live tweeting the whole time.
Yeah.
Kind of critiquing what representatives I thought did well. The ones that I didn't name are the ones that I thought did less well. But I was home kind of doing triple duty because I was also trying to put my YouTube video together for today to kind of comment on what I saw.
And we appreciate it. I love reading your tweets as we went along. You've been tweeting up until it as well, suggesting questions and retweeting other people who you respect. But why not name the names? Because I'll go ahead and say that I feel like the judiciary, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler, he may be a very smart guy. He may be a very effective legislator, but I feel like Democrats don't really understand stagecraft. I feel like he's mealy-mouthed. I feel like he's not good at talking. I just feel like he's not good at talking. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, he's not effective. I'm sure he's I'm sure he's a lovely guy,
yeah.
And I know he has a lot of respect, but I don't know that he was ever a trial lawyer. If he was, I don't know how well he would have performed in court. But I can tell you, I've got a list of people that knocked my socks off.
Okay.
And, it was Representative Neguse. I thought Representative Demings was terrific. Swalwell really nailed him on the Roger Stone thing, which I'm happy to chat about. I thought Representative Jayapal was great. I thought Cicilline was great. I thought Richmond was strong. I love the gravitas of Hank Johnson because he's both effective in the substance of what he does and just the way he communicates it. You pay attention. He has this inherent credibility and gravitas. So I always enjoy Hank Johnson. And then Jamie Raskin had a great line that I actually
love that guy. I had him on the podcast recently.
Yeah, I closed out my YouTube video today with it. He said something that really hit home. And he said that Trump and Barr have made America a global pariah state, which I hadn't heard it articulated that way before. But Pete, we are a global pariah state. I mean, we are now the subject of travel bans. We're on the business end of a travel ban where, countries don't want to see us anymore in their backyards. And frankly, I can't blame them because Trump has basically let coronavirus run free and run wild in the United States for any number of reasons. One is profit. And two, I believe that Trump feels like the more people that are sick, the more people that are suffering, the more people that are hospitalized, the fewer people go to the polls. And in his twisted mind, I think that translates to a higher likelihood of success in November for him.
I think that's speculation. You can't get inside the man's head, but you kind of can based on his behavior throughout his entire life. Yes, I completely agree with that. He has zero empathy for anybody. But when you say, or when I heard Swalwell, was it Swalwell said that? Global pariah state. When I hear you say... It was
Jamie Raskin.
Jamie Raskin. When I hear you repeat him saying that, it gives me that really knocked me down to hear that. As a white guy, I've always felt very, privileged, and I feel good. Nobody's discriminating. I got it good. Things are, I never feel discriminated against. As an American, I feel like, we're a rich, powerful country. I've always, I haven't struggled that much in respect to the rest of the world. To hear that the country that you live in is a global pariah state, and it's accurate, that is really something for our generation to grapple with, that phrase.
It's horrifically accurate, and that's why it struck me. And, as bad as I knew we had it, and as much as I knew we were struggling, and I know that we're the laughing stock, we've actually seen world leaders caught on camera, and I think at the UN as well, laughing at the president of the United States because he's a clown, he's a buffoon. But when Raskin kind of put it in those terms, global pariah state, it's like we got a lot of work to do come January to repair this thing.
There are certain things that happened today, certain things that were said that were clear, provable lies. One of them that you pointed out on Twitter today was that Attorney General Barr at one point was critical of Donald Trump. Remember this, everybody? It was like one time where he said a light criticism that he said it makes Trump's tweets make it, quote, impossible for me to do my job. And today he said he doesn't read Trump's tweets, and you were smart to note that. How about that?
He was almost Trump-esque in the transparency of that lie. And here's why I like this one so much, because I immediately pulled up the ABC News interview, and the headline, here's the blaring headline: Barr blasts Trump's tweets on Stone case, impossible for me to do my job. And when he testified today under oath that he doesn't read Donald Trump's tweet, I started doodling a little perjury charge. Now, it's been a few. I have, and I'm going to read it to you in a minute.
Doodle perjury charges?
I doodled the perjury. Yeah. I'm a good perjury doodler. That's what they tell me. But and no, I've tried. I've indicted perjury cases, usually as a vehicle to try to flip people, because I'll have some I don't want to call people bad guys, but I'll have some questionable guys or gals who go in the grand jury and tell a whole bunch of lies trying to protect the target of the investigation. And I tell them beforehand, I say, please, I'm begging you, don't lie to protect the target of the investigation, because you know what? I have enough criminal cases. The last thing I want to do is charge you with perjury because you lie to my grand jury. What do? They go in and lie to my grand jury. So now I have to make good on my promise. So I charge them with perjury. And you know what they then do? They plead guilty. They flip. They cooperate. We could have cut to the chase. You would have not have been a convicted perjurer had you just listened to me up front. These were my conversations all day, every day as a prosecutor.
Wow, that's interesting. Right? That's super interesting to hear. Yeah.
So here's what I doodled when Bill Barr said that Trump's tweets make it impossible for me to do my job. And then under oath, he said, I don't read Trump's tweets. So here's how it works when we present this to the grand jury. We draft something that says, on or about July 28, 2020, within the District of Columbia, after having been placed under oath by a person competent to administer oaths, William P. Barr did state the following, quote, I do not read Donald Trump's tweets, close quote, a statement William P. Barr knew to be false at the time he made it. Ladies and gentlemen of the grand jury, I would ask for you to vote out one count of perjury against William P. Barr. Done.
But that doesn't seem, that's mild compared to many other things, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
If you consider a 5-year federal felony mild, sure.
So can reasonable people disagree on the litany of issues and cases and situations that Bill Barr should have been asked about? I would say yes, you would know more, but I would also submit that given how many Democrats got to question the Attorney General today, you'd think, since they're on the same team, that they would get together and say, you're going to cover this, you're going to cover that. It's not usually how it works because they all want to, I guess, shine and do their best. But then there ends up being, I feel like, sometimes repetitive questions, as well as, since they're not organized enough, they leave big questions out. Meanwhile, legal Twitter and people like you and others who I follow are suggesting these amazing questions that don't get asked. So what do you think in terms of the ground that was covered and the strategy overall?
Overall, I think they did well to coordinate because they each, you could tell, had kind of a discrete topic that they were supposed to cover.
Is that right? I didn't notice. I didn't watch close enough to notice.
There wasn't a lot of repetition. One person would do the Lafayette Square attack on the peaceful protesters. One person would do his doing favors for Roger Stone and Mike Flynn. One person would do or a couple of people would do the federal response to the riots and the protests in Cortland. So I think they did a good job of kind of parceling up the topics. What they did a less good job on is there are some politicians who can't help themselves. They want to give a 5-minute speech rather than elicit data from Bill Barr that can be used to forward whatever ball it is we need to forward, whether it's an impeachment hearing into Barr, whether it's oversight into the Department of Justice, whether it is, actually getting at the root of who in the world these unmarked federal officers are at Portland. So I think they did a less effective job when it came to the politicians who just wanted to give a 5-minute speech, but they got no data at a Barr. There were some big opportunities completely missed, and they're really consequential opportunities at this moment in time. For example, I had hoped, and I had been tweeting out and been putting on YouTube videos, will somebody please ask Attorney General Barr, you have sent federal forces to Portland to, in your words, protect federal property, protect the federal courthouse. And we know those forces include members of Homeland Security, like the Federal Protective Service. It looks like you've supplemented them with some, Border Patrol people and some ICE people and the U.S. Marshals. However, the American people deserve to know, do you have any private contractors that the federal government has hired to supplement the federal response in Portland and elsewhere? And most importantly, Mr. Attorney General, do those firms, if they were hired, include Eric Prince as an owner, an operator, or a participant in any way? Because I want to know if you are funneling American taxpayers' dollars to Eric Prince, Betsy DeVos's brother.
Ooh.
I mean, we needed to know these things because we got people running around without insignia on their uniforms.
Yeah.
We need to know.
That question wasn't asked? The private contractor question wasn't asked?
I don't believe so, unless I missed it, and I think I watched the whole thing.
Oh, that's such an important question.
Here's the other thing. I wish they had asked, and if I missed this, I know they covered the topic of wait a minute, I lost my train of thought here.
You must have notes somewhere
in front of me. Yeah. What was it? What we did? Oh, here it is. So you know how Trump has been incessantly tweeting out that, if we vote by mail, there's going to be massive fraud. That's obviously nothing more than a narrative that he's going to try to use when he loses in a landslide to say, the voting was rigged and it wasn't a fair election.
He's good at setting himself up. He's such a loser in life with women and with everything.
And
games and businesses and sport, everything he's ever fucking done. Losers like this, you're an athlete, especially, they start making excuses before the game starts, just in case. They can blame it on their equipment. It's that kind of thing. Everybody knows somebody like that. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's the voter fraud thing. He's trying to set us up. Go ahead.
Yep. Yeah. Hey, I was a football guy all my life. My pop was a high school football coach, so I grew up in locker rooms and on sidelines and on fields. And it was The kids who would say, oh, man, that dude missed a block or I would have scored. Oh, that guy dropped a pass. This one missed the tackle. Man, I wanted to smack those people
it's
because we're a team.
Of responsibility.
We're a team and we rise or fall as a team. But no, Trump doesn't know what the word team means.
No.
So here's what I wish they had asked on the voter fraud thing.
Go ahead.
They should have pinned Bill Barr down, and I don't think they did, by saying, listen, the president has been incessantly tweeting that, if we indulge mail, vote by mail, there's going to be massive voter fraud. I want to know, Mr. Attorney General, in the last 5 years or the last 10 years, how many cases has the Department of Justice prosecuted that involved somebody who fraudulently voted by mail? You know what the answer to that is, Pete? 0. So that is data that puts the lie to Donald Trump's claim that this is a massive problem. So I wish they had drawn more data out of him, because it could have been so much more effective in knocking Donald Trump down as we move toward November.
Now, what is the precedent? Do you know, actually, maybe you don't know this, but I was interested when the hearing first began. I was watching Unshaven. Gerald Nadler mumbled through the opening. Maybe he did a good job. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but Bill Barr said a couple times, "I'm not going to tell you about my conversations with the president." Is that fair? Is that fair for any attorney general to say, "Listen, those conversations are in confidence," because the questions are really important. You want to know, as a citizen, as a voter, as an American, you want to know the answer. Did the president order you, the attorney general, to do something? Because that's really not what they're supposed to do.
All right, I want to make both arguments here.
Okay.
First of all, it's not fair in the way he did it, and that has nothing to do with whether you're a Republican or a Democrat.
Are you being unfair by saying that?
No, the way he did it, was when there were things that he wanted to answer about what the president said or didn't say, he answered it.
Right.
But when there was a danger zone where he knew if he spit out what the president said, the president would get in trouble, that's when he invoked. And he didn't invoke executive privilege, mind you. This is what I would call a play privilege. Like in D.C., if you're really close with somebody, that they're like your cousin, you say, that's my play cousin, right? So these are like play privileges. They're not real privileges. Now, the flip side of it is, if I'm a counselor to the president, I'm going to be really careful and circumspect about what I repeat when it comes to private conversations I have with the president. I would say, you know what, all due respect, I'm not sure if this conversation qualifies as, falling under executive privilege or not, Mr. Congressman so-and-so. I'm going to decline to answer, and I hope you don't think I'm being evasive. I'm just trying to protect the privileges and the confidences of the president. If you do it that way, I get it. So I can argue both sides of it. Now I think there are sort of strict constructionists that would say, if it's not covered by an actual privilege, you've got executive privilege, attorney-client privilege, you've got doctor-patient, priest-parishioner, you got lots of actual privileges, marital privilege. If it's not covered by an actual privilege, then you should be compelled to testify about it. Every witness shouldn't be able to subjectively say, I'm going to say this, but I'm not going to say that. No, I think there would be a good, hard and fast rule if Congress put it in place that unless it's literally covered by a legally recognized privilege, you must answer the question.
So I feel like one of the most important moments today, and one of the most, when you think about Barr and what he has done to protect the president, and in terms of the investigation, the Mueller investigation, when you think about his entire time as Attorney General, and you think about the importance of the Department of Justice and the role of the Department of Justice, and then finally when you think about the election, when you tie all that together, I feel like one of the most important moments was today when, who was it? I think Congressman Cicilline, if I'm pronouncing his name right, maybe it's not the correct Italian. He said, when asked, I'm reading your tweet. You wrote, Barr is pathetic. When asked if it's ever appropriate for a president to seek or accept foreign assistance in an election, he answered, it depends on the kind of assistance. He is then asked the identical question, and he finally answers accurately, no. #resign, #impeach. That's your tweet. But folks should remember that moment as it relates to the role of the Attorney General, the Department of Justice, and our election sanctity. That is such a not liberal, not conservative thing. Foreign nations cannot interfere in our election because they would be doing it in their interests.
You hit the nail right on the head, because he knew he lied in his first answer. It depends on the kind of assistance, because we all know that it doesn't depend on the kind of assistance. It is like absolutely prohibited. So even he recognized he lied, and he told that lie because the president has openly and notoriously asked Russia for assistance, asked China for assistance, maybe even Turkey. I'm not recalling.
I think I'm sorry to interrupt you, but most notoriously, he told George Stephanopoulos, whatever his name is, yes, in an interview, he said, yes, I would take foreign assistance. And Stephanopoulos was like, "Are you fuck? Did you get that? Did everybody hear that?"
And that's why Bill Barr caught himself in a lie. Yeah. That phrase, see, you put your finger right on it. The first lie he told was a lie to protect the president. And then when he thought about it, he's like, okay, I kind of just, one, committed perjury because I lied. And two, the point of the lie was because I know the president is a criminal and has done these things. So then, you might as well have stuck with the lie at that point, and then you could have come up with a mealy mouth. Well, maybe they came across something that was really, solid evidence, and we wanted to know about it because it consisted of a crime and blah, blah, blah. He could have talked his way out of it. But to his credit, he then said, you know what? No, we can't do that.
Right.
I mean, there's like 3 layers of crime, corruption, and abuse all wrapped in that 30-second exchange.
There were questions asked today about the election and how, Bill Barr as the Attorney General would react, or what he thought about hypothetically. Could the president change the date of the election? Could the president challenge the results of the election? What did you think of that line of questioning? Was that important?
Yeah, it was. I'm going to say it was less important because we all saw him weasel his way through his confirmation hearing, making all kinds of promises that he then defaulted on the minute he was sworn in. So I don't think any of that would have really I don't think it will have an impact moving forward when election time comes and Trump does, 8 different things to try to chill the vote. The other thing I do think was important, though, was the whole discussion about what Barr ordered at Lafayette Square. And there are 2 glaring answers that are really going to jam him up when we can get on top of this come January and begin to indict these people for the crimes that they committed while in office. Here are the 2 answers he gave that are going to jam him up. One, he kept insisting that, we didn't do this in response to anything the protesters did. This was planned a day in advance, and it was designed to push out the perimeter 1 block further from the White House. And then the second thing he said, and I'll tell you why both of these things are bad. The second thing he said is, and we gave the protesters a warning before we did it. Let me tell you why those 2 things are incriminating, and we'll come back to haunt him. The first thing he said was, this wasn't in response to anything the protesters did. He just gave up a possible defense and explanation for why they gassed and flashbang grenaded the protesters, because if he had said they were advancing on the White House, this was a dangerous situation, so we had to do this, he took that defense away from himself when he said what we did was not in response to anything the protesters did. The second thing is when he said, listen, we gave them a warning before we acted. Can I tell you, Pete, as a prosecutor for 30 years, it is not a defense to assaulting someone or violating someone's First Amendment rights to say, I'm warning you, if you don't move, I'm going to assault you. I'm warning you, if you don't move, I'm going to gas you and use flashbang grenades on you. And then if you go on to do those things and assault people in those ways, it's still a criminal assault. A warning is not a defense.
So good to have you explain these things, because we would never know otherwise without experts like yourself. Oh, man. Well, if you are appointed Attorney General or you go back to work in government, which I hope is the case, if you'd be willing to do that, because your YouTube page. But by the time hopefully Biden's elected and inaugurated in an ideal situation, you're going to be such a big YouTube media star. You're not gonna go back in the government. That's what I predict.
I don't know about that. I would like to get back into the government because there is so
you
much.
Would if asked, you would go back and
clean up this mess. Yes, and there's a lot of mess to clean up, but justice is energizing. So let's do it.
Justice is energizing, indeed. I like that. Glenn Kirschner. Now go to his YouTube page right now. Hashtag Justice is Coming. The great Glenn Kirschner. Go subscribe. Go watch the videos, especially this most recent one. Thank you so much for joining me, sir, as always.
Hey, thank you, Pete. You're the best. Appreciate it.
Now head over to YouTube and check his latest video out. That is after you're done listening to my conversation with my second guest on today's episode. It is Dr. Arthur Caplan. Dr. Arthur Caplan is a bioethicist at NYU. He is one of the smartest people I get the opportunity to talk to. I've been talking to him throughout the pandemic. It's an epidemic, whatever. What's the difference? I should probably ask Arthur Caplan that. Great guy. I like him a lot, and I love talking to him. I covered a lot of ground with Dr. Arthur Caplan today. Please let him know that you heard him on the podcast at Arthur Caplan, Caplan of NYU, a bioethicist who has a lot of answers for my several questions on today's conversation. Let me just play the interview right now. So here he is now, Dr. Arthur Caplan, joining me on the phone. Thank you very much for your time today, as always, sir.
Hey, always good to be here.
So much to talk with you about. What are the ethics around another family or crazy conspiracy theorists? I mean, the Plandemic movie and Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates and QAnon and all of it. Their daughter, friends with my daughter. They wanted my daughter to go to their house. We said, no, thank you. But then my daughter wanted that girl, and some friends to come to our house. And I said, oh, God, this is such a tough situation. I don't want to choose my daughter's friends. I don't want to tell her who she can be with. In this case, when you're being social and you have to kind of pick and choose about who's going to respect the rules and the kind of science, that's a tough one for parents, much less young people. What do you think?
Sure, very tough, because you also, you want to get maintain your reputation among neighbors and people you're going to deal with, not just for this visit, but maybe for years to come. So offending people or looking prissy is probably trouble. That said, I don't care. I think you have to say people coming over here are going to mask unless we know that they've been quarantining and testing, and basically we don't have to worry about them. I have visitors coming here who I know haven't left their houses for months. I'm not worried about them being sources of infection. But if I have somebody come in, I had a cleaning person finally come to clean the house after a couple of months, and I insisted they wear masks. So I think, it's basically, we don't care that it's your friend. We don't care if it's the delivery guy. We don't care if it's a repairman. If we don't know where they've been, then they have to take precautions.
I've told my daughter's friend she has to wear a specific like Halloween mask. Is that too far? Is that too much?
Well,
I gave her.
Maybe it is too much.
One of those, rubber ones with the hair. It's pretty hot in there, but listen.
Right. I'm not sure it actually will work that well.
Oh, yeah,
either.
it does have a mouth hole. You're right. Yes, that's a dumb idea. All right, well, that's a tough one, and I'm sure that I ask that because I know that I'm not alone in this situation, and, there's a lot of parents out there who's, especially teenage kids, are really rebelling and not, following the rules and not understanding why you have to follow the rules, so it's a good answer for a lot of other people that are dealing with this.
I'm not sure that teenage kids don't know why you should follow the rules. I might even rephrase it to say they just don't want to because they don't like rules.
Better said. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Generally, just on the tests, if the tests don't have a fairly quick turnaround, are they useless?
Yeah, they're pretty useless. I mean, finding out that you weren't infected 12 days ago, unless you stayed in the same place and done nothing over the past 12 days, doesn't give you the information you need. You need a test that says you're not positive as of the last 24 hours, or even better, as of the same day. You need the test that the fancy pro athletes are getting, which is same-day testing from a private lab. They pay a premium and they get the results back right away. Finding out what was a snapshot of history from, let's be mean about it, 2 weeks ago is not ideal.
I mean, and I know you're not an economist, but I would imagine that nothing could be worse for economics if, for business, for commerce, if you can't go to work because you don't know. I mean, if you want to be safe, you get the test, you find out you're negative, you go to work, but you can't go to work and you don't want anybody at work if they don't have the results. So it's an economic issue.
And so, exactly. And so let's say I'm trying to test because I'm taking the subway to work. And so I don't want to find out just, am I positive? Was I okay 2 weeks ago before I tried this trip? But what I want to know is if I got on the subway or the bus or took an Uber or had a stranger drive me in a carpool or something, am I okay as of the last 24 hours? Because I don't want anybody to be at risk from my recent experience, not what was going on 2 weeks ago. Absolutely. And the fact that we don't have these tests is absurd.
Well,
right? I mean, it's another one of these complete federal government failures.
Is it? I mean, should we be more forgiving? Are these tests really difficult to procure and to turn around and expensive and distribute?
I don't know. They seem to have good 24-hour testing in Taiwan. Seem to have good 24-hour testing in South Korea. It's doable. You just got to put the effort into it, not run around saying, I don't have to put an effort into this because we don't have a problem, which is what our esteemed leader did.
Yeah, it is. It does always, by the way, I'm glad you said it that way, because it does seem to come back to when being critical of this president and few others. I think the president of Brazil has been fairly ignorant as well. But it comes back to the president of the United States not being able to admit that there is an issue. And therefore, a lot of his followers and loyalists agreeing that there must not be an issue, and that even that it's a hoax. I mean, if we can't, in your circles, in your world, in public health and bioethics, how often does it come up that people really vehemently disagree on what the problem is? I feel like in your world, it's mostly about what the difficult choices and solutions are.
Yeah, that's exactly right. People understand that there's a virus. It's nasty. It's running amok. People aren't doing the behavioral things that would tamp it down, not eliminate it, but, make it less worse, that we started to do in the Northeast and have continued to do and have helped us. And if you just want to try an experiment, you can see what the difference is between trying hard to beat back a virus that puts people in the hospital and looking at Texas and Arizona, Florida, and seeing people in the hospital. It's like, you can say it's a hoax, but I don't think the people in the hospital beds think it's a hoax. And certainly the doctors and nurses that I deal with and the scientists hunting for cures don't think it's a hoax.
So let me ask you about a different issue that you've been weighing in on a lot, which is, and you already kind of touched on it, which is sports. You said that they're able to turn their tests around very quickly in some of these leagues. First of all, is Major League Baseball different than the WNBA or the NBA? Is the NBA different than football? And then I think we have to talk about, college sports and high school and youth sports as well in terms of why they exist and what they do. But how different do you look at the league?
Let's go to the pros, where they get a lot of money and it's big business. And we're talking billions and billions of dollars, not for the WNBA. The women's sports don't make that much, but baseball, certainly huge TV contracts, a lot of dough. Basketball, hockey, football, men's versions, all big dough sports. So on a grading scale, NBA playing in one court inside a isolated quarantine world at Disney land in Florida, I'll give them a B. They're doing a pretty good job. They seem to be controlling the comings and goings. They got a lot of testing. They're watching who can come in and change the bed and deliver food, the whole thing. So that's pretty good. At the other end is Major League Baseball. I'll give them an E. They fail. An F. Why? Because for reasons known only to the Major League Baseball commissioner and owners, they're traveling from city to city with players and coaches and staff. It's got to be at least 100 plus people moving around to play games every day. They have a 60-game schedule that they're trying to go through to get to a championship. And as they march through the 60-game schedule, teams from Phoenix, Miami, Texas wind up traveling to places that don't have much COVID. And all of a sudden, they're bringing their infections with them. We just watched it happen with the Miami Marlins. Canada, which is home to the Toronto Blue Jays baseball professional franchise, basically said, you're not coming here. And they told the Blue Jays to take a hike, and the Blue Jays have established themselves apparently in Buffalo. I guess that's some version of punishment for the Blue Jays that maybe they don't merit. But in any event, Canada said, we got no virus. We've tamped it down. The U.S. in the South and Southwest is out of control. It's 15 times the rate that we have. You can't travel here.
Right.
And this whole notion of travel, empty stadium to empty stadium, if you're not a sports fan, they have cardboard cutouts to replace the fans in the stand. What are they thinking?
Well, to be fair, I have those set up for my audience at home to practice comedy. I don't want to.
I'm sure many people wish you would substitute me as a guest. A cardboard cutout might be a good idea. But
you're up there. All of my favorite guests right there. Yeah. You're back laughing. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
They're stupid. This is like the dumb plan. It's ridiculous. You can't travel. That's what I'm saying again, just to be clear. The players sleep at home, run around town, who knows what they're doing or where they're going, and then they show up to the bus or plane, depending on where they're traveling to, and then they exercise precautions. You know, they don't fist bump, and hopefully they stop spitting, and they're doing things inside the field. But, you know, the infection risk is outside the field. What? It's ridiculous. They'll never make it through their season. Never.
Baseball,
no.
But basketball
Football is sounding like it wants to do the same thing as baseball, which is travel, send teams out. Remember, these are young guys. Many of them want to socialize, head out at night, entertain themselves. You can tell them not to do it, but like our high school friends, not clear that they won't. Football, baseball, doomed. Basketball got a chance, and hockey, they're only playing at 2 sites in Canada where the rate of infection is low and trying to sort of semi-bubble there. I'll give them a C, but they have a chance. No, not a shot for baseball, not a shot for football.
Yeah, they canceled. The NFL announced they were canceling the preseason yesterday. So that was some news.
Yep.
Does it matter, do you know, about in terms of the way a sport is played, in terms of, you know, how the virus could be transmitted more in one sport than another? I mean, it seems like baseball would be the safest because you're you know, there's not a lot of contact. You're distanced from other players, but football or basketball,
tennis and golf, they're probably pretty good.
Right.
Nobody around, right?
Yeah, good point.
Come and go. But look,
if you call golf a sport,
I think we've gotten ourselves wound up on the wrong front here. The danger isn't what's happening when you're playing the game. Yeah, there's danger. The danger is, what are you doing when you're not playing?
Got it.
Where are you?
Right.
Where are you living? Where are you traveling? Where are you going? And, you know, basketball's tried to account for that, the NBA. Baseball has not. Baseball's already had one team basically with a gigantic outbreak, and I'm sure there's going to be more.
What about youth sports and college sports?
So college, I think we can say football should never even be attempted. You're going to have students living in dormitory-like conditions, close to one another between practices, even if they do good hygiene or whatever when they're at the practice site or at a game. They're just not set up to be in a bubble either. And I think there's some leagues, Ivy League, some of the small leagues have already canceled or pushed back to the spring to see what's going to be around, maybe a vaccine by then. But no, I mean, the short answer is no college football, no high school football, no sports where you have to basically be on site and reside in a tiny dormitory. If you're on the golf team, good for you. You can live home and, show up to play and you're not near anybody. But no, I don't. I think, and I'm not an enemy of sports. I think they're important. I think, young people need to maintain fitness, but I don't think it's going to be through organized sport. I think it's going to be a little bit more exercise and outdoors and yoga and climbing the monkey bars and that sort of stuff, but not college sports with athletes in dorms.
Sounds like a hater. It sounds like the jocks were mean to little Art Caplan, and you're taking it out on them.
I'm not anti. I played sports in high school and college. I played lacrosse and football. I like them.
Wow, you played lacrosse? That's my sport.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Very cool.
I probably was chasing the likes of you around because my hunch is you were an attack man.
That's absolutely right. I was a small little fella.
Right, and I was a priest defenseman. Bloated blob of a fella. So
I was the guy I was basically an actor. I tried to draw a penalty from the guys like you.
Yeah. All I did in my sports career was whack people with sticks, or in playing football, I was a guard, basically looking to ram one or another of my arms into their solar plexus. I frequently had no idea in football.
Well, I've got
the heck the score was or anything. I didn't know what was going on.
I've got a job for you in Trump's secret police. If you're good at knocking people in the solar plexus and hitting them with sticks. Let's talk about school in general, though, because you are seeing a real, hybrid attempt in every district, in every state, in every county in this country. I've got friends at the Florida Education Association I had on last week, both the president and vice president of that. The biggest teachers union in Florida. They're now suing the state because they're forcing the teachers back to school, and they really don't seem to have a good plan there. How do you see the plans that have come out, and how are different ones?
Are you telling me that Governor DeSantis of Florida does not have a good plan? I find that very, very hard to believe.
Very strange. Like, if you look at his behavior and his politics, I have to wonder. Usually you can look at politicians and say, well, there's special interests that want to do this or that. But it would seem that some of these governors are paying fealty to Donald Trump because they're afraid of a tweet. It's not like there's the Chamber of Commerce or the typical lobbies that are influencing politicians. It's like this guy's just afraid of Donald Trump, who's obviously a madman.
Well, let's start by saying, why are we going back to school? Many people might think because we want to educate our kids, we don't want them to fall behind, want them to have some socialization. I don't think that's the real reason. I think it's work, and I think it's back to normal and getting the economy going, because most households are two-income earning people to get by, and if the kids are home, one of them can't go to work. So to me,
and if it's one income, they're definitely going to work, most likely, right?
Yeah. But I mean, let's be honest about what's going on. If it's daycare we need, then why are we sending somebody back to a Flint, Michigan school that has no water and has 30 kids in a tiny classroom? You know what I mean? It's no ventilation. It's not safe to be there. If you want daycare, let's open up a big, gym or rec center or something and space them out and send them to a place where they can wash their hands. So for some people, it's not school, it's daycare. That's what they want. For others, I think if you're living in Connecticut, where I am, the COVID rate is really tamped down. I think you probably can open up schools with safety measures and good plans, protect the teachers and the staff as well as the kids, but it might work. Opening up schools in Miami? Are you kidding me? Major League Baseball can't even do it, and they have unending money to test and isolate and so forth.
So as far as the places where the virus is spiking, you would handle it one way, and the places where it's more dormant, is that the word? Would you handle it a different way? Like, where we live in New York, they're doing the kind of a hybrid, an A and B day, and you're based on the alphabetical order. You go to school a couple days a week, that kind of a thing.
And I would do it. I think one size fits all, like Trump and his minions keep arguing, is ridiculous. Sending kids to school in Houston or Miami or Phoenix in the middle of a plague makes no sense. That's dangerous to teachers, dangerous to kids, and they don't have resources to protect and make the places safe. Sending them to school in a place with a really low incidence where it's really been tamped down, I think you could probably make that work. And then let's ask a few other questions. Aside from going in shifts to get class size down or alternate days, can we buy people computers and say for the other time, even if you're poor, you can, do remote learning? The last time I looked, Trump didn't come out and say homeschooling was a sin and everybody had to pull their kids out of there and send them back. So it's possible that more people could do that. So I think we got to have some flexibility here.
Yeah, well, that's not the name of the game here, and there's no real policy initiatives that this president has really understood to be able to support. I think you have to start there.
Well, the education policy is go back to school, hell or high water. I mean, I think we should have Donald step in and act as a substitute teacher in an inner city school with no ventilation and 40 kids in the classroom, and let his giant brain be challenged by the kids while the virus swirls around. He won't come out well.
Unless they ask him about the matching game, they say a few words and then he tries to repeat them. And he might be able to handle that. But on that, by the way, what are the ethics with the American public knowing the health of the president? That's controversial. I feel like that's straightforward. But I was just speculating about his health because he's new video of him dragging his foot. He couldn't lift a glass. And what we shouldn't be speculating about the president's health. It should be transparent. I would argue the same for a pilot or a surgeon or a number of other jobs. Not my job. It's not this job doesn't require you to know my health. But some jobs I would think ethically it would.
Yeah, and being president, vice president, let's just start there. They do. And we should have had, I think I wrote my first opinion thing arguing for this about 30 years ago. We should have an independent panel of docs, some with psychiatry, some with geriatrics, some with other neurology and other specialists. Maybe you get 10 of them. And you go do what they would do if you or I were going to get a physical at the Mayo Clinic, probably costing thousands of dollars. A panel of docs would examine us maybe over 2 days, and then we'd get a big report back from all of these specialists. You mean we can't arrange that for the presidential candidates or annually for the president? What we have is the president has his personal doctor in the White House come out and pronounce him in great shape and then go run for Congress in a Republican district in Texas where he wants Trump to support him.
Right. Yeah. Crazy. Before I let you go, I do want to ask you, of course, about vaccines. And you've been writing, talking, tweeting a lot about how this is going to be handled if and when we get a vaccine we think is effective. Who gets it? How is it priced? How is it manufactured? And what about the messaging on it? With the last couple of minutes here, Dr. Caplan, there's a lot to say about this issue. It would seem like the first thing is the first people get it are healthcare providers, and then we can talk about the rest. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, I think people in need should get it first, and that would be the usual suspects: healthcare providers, first responders, nursing home residents, nursing home staff. We've seen big outbreaks, by the way, in prisons. Probably want to vaccinate there too. They've been, I think politically we'll probably wait a long time for them to go first, but we ought to be going there because they've suffered a lot from this virus. Native American Indian reservations have been hotbeds of outbreaks. So that's where the need is. You want to save lives. What's likely to happen? Some people are going to say, I don't want to take it because I'm afraid of it, which I think is foolish, but we will see people refusing because all they hear is this was done at warp speed and I don't trust it. And maybe even it was done by Donald Trump and I don't trust it. So there are going to be some folks who just say, nope, I'm going to wait.
Right.
Pete can get it first. Let me see how he's looking in here, and then I'll think about it. And then the other driver, after you get the people in need out of the way, your boss is probably going to say you got to be vaccinated to come back to work. If you're going to come in a building or get into a movie theater or, show up at a sports event, you're going to want to see a vaccine certificate. So I don't even think it's going to be mandated by the government. Americans, for whatever bizarro reason, seem to take their mandates from the private sector, but I think the private sector is going to impose them.
Yeah, that's a really interesting, good point, too. Yes. What is your best guess? What have you seen? What have you read about the efficacy or the timeline on vaccines?
So my best guess is late 2021. Number of vaccines are just starting big human trials now to demonstrate safety and efficacy, but I don't think they'll be done before the end of the year or early next year. And they may not work. If we got a vaccine that was 50% effective right out of the box on the first try, that'd be great. but I wouldn't bet on it. So I think we're going to have to try out 4 or 5 vaccines before we get one that, sort of shows efficacy. So I think we got another year of riding around with this pain in the neck virus and then handling it, trying to change behavior, meaning masks and isolation and don't have big house parties and all the rest of it.
Fair enough. More than fair enough. And as difficult and challenging as it is, that's what has to be done. Dr. Arthur Caplan, it's so great talking to you. I always appreciate when you join us, and so does everybody listening. Thank you so much for what you do, sir.
I enjoy it.
All right, pal. I'll talk to you soon. He enjoys it. I enjoy it. And I hope that you enjoy it and get a lot out of it as well. I've heard from a lot of listeners this week already, and I look forward to hearing from more of you. Email me standupwithpete@gmail.com. If you're a paying subscriber, you can reach out to me using the Patreon app. Go to patreon.com/Pete Dominic. If you haven't already signed up, I'd love to have you join. Also, August 8th, I'll be in Royalsford, Pennsylvania, Soul Joel's Comedy Club. Links to all of it in the show notes and on my social media. And just remember, you're not alone. Tuesday wasn't easy for me. I don't know how it was for you. I had some challenges. I'm sure that you did as well. Every day, gift though, and we're making it through it together because it's the only way to do it. So stay close, stay in touch. You're not alone. I love you. And if I haven't heard from you yet, I'd like to hear from you. So drop me a line. Hang in there, you. We'll get through this together.